Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Again, welcome to the MASFAP and St. Louis Graduates Professional Development Institute for High School Counselors and College Access Providers. We are thrilled that you're here and so excited to discuss our topic today, which is gap funding and scholarships and helping students and families through this process. About a month ago, we hosted a workshop on financial aid offers, and covering the gap is the next step in the financial aid process. So the first presentation on financial aid offers is available on the St. Louis Graduates website. If this is your first workshop, welcome. If you've joined us before, welcome back. We work hard to create a space where we can learn from each other and share and grow. We're also glad that you're here. After a few housekeeping notes, we will do a quick check-in so you can meet at least one other person on the call. So, we skipped through it, but the agenda does include two extremely knowledgeable speakers on the topic of covering the gap and working with the financial aid office. So we have Emily Haynam, the Executive Director of the Student Financial Aid at the University of Missouri-Columbia, and Dominesha Newton, Student Advisor from the Scholarship Foundation of St. Louis. So after Emily and Dominesha, Kaitlyn will share some reminders on My Scholarship Central, and I will share some information about two of our programs that are available to help current high school students. Okay, and then after that, Kayla Klein will wrap us up, and we plan to end no later than 11:20. Okay, so moving along to the housekeeping items, as always, give yourself and others grace and space. Everyone is dealing with a lot right now, so some working from home, some in the office, everyone is just in a different place. So join by video if you can, so we can see you, but we understand if you can't. And a reminder that our meeting agreements are in place, and we can put those in the chat, but this is a living document that continues to evolve, and agreements on how we will participate and respect each other during our learning workshops. And make sure to remain on mute unless you are presenting to keep the background noise to a minimum. You can also use that chat function to ask questions throughout the meeting, and you can use the reaction buttons if somebody says something you like or dislikes. And I wanted to also thank the behind-the-scenes technology and super coordinator of this event, Laura Winter from St. Louis Graduates, and also to members of the MASFAP Early Awareness Committee and the St. Louis Graduates PDI committees. Monica from WashU will be moderating the chat, and make sure you can, those questions that you ask go get answered. So this session is being recorded, and we will post the notes after the meeting. So upcoming workshops, we hope you will continue to join us in March and April for more workshops if the topic is of interest. St. Louis Graduates is working with the State's Financial Aid Association MASFAP on the financial aid topics, and also STEM STL on career pathways. All workshops are open to all counselors throughout the state of Missouri, and here's your list of upcoming workshops. So we want to continue to grow those, so feel free to pass those along to others. So welcome back, everyone. I always love the check-in and getting to know new people on the call, since we can't be all together. So next I'm going to turn it over to Emily Haynam, Executive Director of Financial Aid at the University of Missouri-Columbia. Emily?
Great, thank you. Thank you all for having me. I'm much more of a conversationalist when I present, so I will go ahead and get started, and it's killing me that we aren't in person and able to have the back and forth and feel the rhythm of the room and everything, but we'll go ahead and get started. I will do my best to stick to my time, but please don't hesitate to yell at me that I need to, get moving. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So what we're going to talk about, or what I want to talk about with you all is obviously we want to make sure that the things that you talk to the financial aid office about, the things you talk to any institution about, will guide you through that. But I think first and foremost, one of the things that we're starting to see is really lacking in conversations with students is understanding if an institution is the right financial fit for them. we are consistently getting or having conversations of more of the emotional nature. I want to be part of a sorority. I want to be part of a fraternity. I want that 4-year experience. I want, go to the bigger institution, so forth and so on. That's not always the right move for a family, but it could be, it could not be. But let's make sure we're doing the right analysis or guiding students through the right analysis of, can I afford to be there? And not just can I afford to be there for 1 year, but can I afford to be there for 4 years? Or if I'm an engineer, I need to be there for 5 years. Or, various majors have different timelines for completing their degree. So really starting off with, in order to figure out if it's the right financial fit, you have to understand what you're going to be billed. You have to understand how it's coming, when it's coming, the timing of it. Being billed is not necessarily, the timing of when you're billed is not necessarily the time of when it's due. So understanding that and understanding the bill, which I think you guys have had sessions on, or are going to have more information about that. So I won't go into that too much. But when we're sending out financial aid offer letters, which I know you had a session about that previously, that's not a bill. That is an estimate. The cost of attendance is us being required by the federal government to figure out on average how much it costs for a student to attend our institution. And then we're giving that to students, but that's not necessarily what everybody's individual costs will be. So it's really, really important that you still go that extra mile, look at the cashier's website, look at the bursar's website, and figure out what the billing process actually is. And then starting to look at the award letters that are going to explain your direct and indirect costs. And when I say direct, I'm talking about those costs that are billed directly to the student from the institution. And those indirect costs are the things that are discretionary. If you're living off campus, it's your off-campus apartment, but it's your off-campus meals, it's traveling to and from your home, it's your personal expenses like toothpaste and clothing, like all of those things. We can't forget that a student has those costs while they're a student. It's not just about paying the tuition. And so what is the plan to pay for those in year one, but then what is the plan for that in years 3 and 4, or the next 3 to 4 years? It's really, really important that we're having those conversations. I don't know how many times I get an escalation to my office or to my position because the students in year 2, they came here in year 1, parent took out a Parent Plus loan in year 1 to help them get across and pay this gap funding. But then in year 2, the parent's not willing to take out the Plus loan. And so these are conversations we need to be having with students earlier and planning that thought process out, because it's just the financial aid that they get is not always enough to pay those discretionary indirect costs. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to be a little bit redundant for these first 3 slides, but I'm a big, big proponent of planning your work and working your plan. And I believe the financial wellness for our students starts with budgeting and understanding the costs. So I've already gone over that a little bit. But we are essentially asking students to purchase a car and maybe 2 cars, depending on what your threshold is for buying a car and how much it costs, because you can get a used car for cheaper than you can get an education for 1 year in the higher education space. So would you purchase that car? Would you sign all those papers and go for that without understanding what it's going to cost you? Not just now, but in the future, and how long it's going to, you go through all those terms and conditions and that payment and all of that stuff when you're purchasing a car. And I think a lot of times we're pushing, not that we're pushing students through, we're giving them the materials, the information's out there, but are they understanding them? Or are they just signing it so they can get that experience, go to the college that they want to go to, and then they'll deal with that later? I would really prefer if students understand it now and their parents understand it now when they're making those decisions, because this is just not, it's just not a decision to be taken lightly. These costs are real, and it will affect their financial future for 10 plus years if they don't make the right decisions now. And I'll give you an example. I used to work in Indiana, and I was at a regional campus for Purdue in Indiana, and we had a mom that said to her son, I will pay for what it costs for you to attend the regional campus, but the student wanted to go to the main campus, right? Which was like $20,000 more, or like, between the aid packages and everything and how it shook out, right? Well, the mom sat down with the son and opened up her books like opened up her financial budget, like what she's had to endure. And she was a single mom. So she's a chiropractor. So she ended up, I mean, she's a successful person, but she wanted her son to really understand what it costs to live, not just when you're right out of college, but 20 years down the line when you're trying to figure life out. And that helped the son make the choice of, it made the choice easy for the son, you know, because then he understood what his financial ramifications were going to be for the long term and not just the short term. And it made that decision less emotional and made it more transactional. And I think we have to be really careful as higher education professionals. We obviously want students, and we want students to come here and have a great experience, especially, you know, no matter what institution you work at, you want that to happen. But we need to be careful that we don't continue to glorify the college experience and talk about it in more practical terms, because we don't want students to be worse off coming to our institution than what they started, or if they could have made a better choice for themselves. So we're focused on that. We're laser focused on that at our institution right now. And I put a link in there that I think is really helpful. Again, it's based off of, basically you can go in and you can compare institutions, and there's average annual costs by income level of what it costs to attend the institution. It's your average loan debt, and the terms of what a student graduating from X institution is going to pay. The range of their loan payments over a 10-year period, or you can also click through and look at all the various loan options that are out there for repayment. So it's just giving you an apples to apples comparison about attending institution A, B, C, you know, on down the line. It helps students at least get an overview or a bigger picture thought process of the costs of college and not just the experience. All right, next slide, please. All right, so again, if you didn't catch it on the last two slides or in my conversation, financial fit is something that we are laser focused on. And just because making it a good financial fit, that really is the transition of financing the gap. So we talked about, you know, getting aid to pay for tuition, but then there's also all these other indirect expenses that a student's going to incur. And sometimes like a lot of awards out there, whether it's from an institution, an outside organization, state aid, a lot of it's like tuition specific. It can only go toward tuition and fees. So if you're living on campus, then you still have to figure out how to pay for room and board, which sometimes is just as expensive as tuition or close to it. So that's something to think about. But this is kind of my order of thought process of how to finance that gap. Of course, you want to reduce your costs and make smart decisions as much as you possibly can. You know, an example is just don't live in the most expensive dorm or residence hall or off-campus apartment. Like really do your homework and try not to overspend. Apply for as many institutional scholarships, look at the websites, look at the admissions page. When you're entering college, most scholarships that are given to incoming freshmen are typically controlled by the admissions office or awarded by the admissions office. And sometimes those awards live on the admissions page. We actually have a link to our admissions page off of our financial aid page for those types of awards. So sometimes those are automatically awarded to students, sometimes they're not. It's just important that students know deadlines and pay attention to all applications that are available to them. Outside and external scholarships, we'll have a couple slides in a minute where we'll talk about some entities that might be able to help with that. And also some institutions are working with vendors. We in particular have a vendor that we work with that a student can fill out a bunch of matching questions and try to match them up with scholarships that are external to Mizzou. So some schools have that, some don't, but it's about looking at websites and finding out those things. You could get on a tuition payment plan to help finance the gap. So if you don't have all the cash now or don't want to take out the loan now, but your family can finance it over several payments, that's something that you want to research and look into. A lot of parents and students, if they work for a company, they have there's remissions or tuition discounts for working for that company. So it's really important that parents and students, if they're working, they talk to their HR offices and see if they have any type of remission or scholarship opportunity for their student or themselves attending. And then we start to get into loans. So everything before that was paying directly yourself, or obtaining gift aid, and which is aid you don't have to pay back. But then we start to talk about loans, and loans can be a valuable investment. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a few slides. But again, paying attention to the deadlines and the terms and conditions of the award and how awards work with each other is really important. We'll talk about that a little bit more. All right, next one, please. Okay, so when you're chatting with the financial aid office, first, it's really helpful. I mean, be an educated consumer as much as you can, but we also know, financial aid offices know, and we all are guilty of this, right? Like, we talk in our language. We have a tendency to talk in financial aid terminology, and we are trying really hard to not do that and talk in terms that people understand. But everybody's level of understanding things is different. So there are some federal requirements that we have to stick to. But anyway, look at the websites, look over the websites, read about things as much as you can. And I mentioned admissions website is also really helpful, as well as the cashiers and bursar, because it all ties together. And we try to tie that together as best as we can as institutions, but we don't always do that perfectly. And that's something we're always striving for. But check online. Once a student is admitted to an institution, they typically they're set up with an account and a login, a student login. And oftentimes financial aid systems are set up to have checklists or action items for students to complete. And the best thing a student can do is not wait till August, really not even wait till June or July to start looking at these things. There are things that we can start to help them with well in advance of the beginning of the term. And when you start to wait till summer and August, things get really busy, and you're going to have longer wait times, you're going to have longer response times, and you may not be able to get everything done in time before that bill is due. Bills aren't usually due on the first day of classes. They're usually due well before that. So that's something to keep in mind, and why it's so important to reach out to us earlier. Call or email us if you have any information. Ask us if there's any information that's incomplete. That kind of goes to the to-do list, but not every financial aid office operates the same way or has that to-do list out there for students, but they're typically sending emails. So students need to start checking their institutional email as soon as possible, because that is one of the main communication mechanisms to tell you, we're probably going to email you what we need you to do. We're probably going to give you links in that email to follow. And if you don't understand the terminology on that when you're talking to us or when you're looking at that email, go ahead and call us, and we'll walk through it with you. But again, it's much better if you do that earlier than wait till the busy season and financial aid offices get extremely stressed out as we get into August. July and August is our busiest time, and it's very hard to spend 30, 40 minutes on the phone with a student when we have a call log or a call queue waiting of, 20 to 100 students like behind you. So the earlier you can get in, the better is what I would do. And terms and conditions, I mentioned that on the last slide, but I want to mention it again, because one of the number one questions we get, or frustrations we get, with financial aid packaging, and financial aid packaging is our terminology of adding all your aid together and stacking it up and seeing how much it'll cover of your estimated cost of attendance, right? Or what it costs to attend our institution. The terms and conditions matter. So certain awards don't stack. And what I mean stack is, if you get a $2,000 grant and then you get another $3,000 scholarship, does that $3,000 scholarship go on top or in addition to that $2,000 to equal $5,000? Or will that $2,000 be replaced by a portion of that additional scholarship that comes on? That's a very real thing and happens at most institutions, where scholarships will displace each other. And so that's a really, really important thing of why, it's just so important that students understand the terms and conditions of their awards, and they look up each individual scholarship and grant that they're receiving. You'll hear us say, as a community, last dollar in, and I'll use our Missouri Land Grant award. Our grant is last dollar in toward tuition. So any other institutional aid you receive, state aid, federal grants, it's going to apply toward your tuition first. And then our Missouri land grant program is going to come in as a last dollar toward tuition and fees and save the day to help you pay for your full tuition as an in-state resident. But at first, if you don't have a scholarship on your account and then it comes in later from like an academic unit or something, it's going to displace some of that land grant that's showing on your account. And so those are some of the challenging conversations that we have with students. And that's why it's so important for students to understand how those different aid programs work. And the last thing I'll say on this one is institutions are different, right? So tips on asking about more aid, you're going to have a different experience if you're talking to probably a private institution versus a public institution. Public institutions are typically going out with our best aid packages. We don't have as much of maybe the massive endowments that a lot of private schools have. Private schools will often, not all, I'm generalizing here, so don't, if there's private school folks on there know differently, it's different at every institution, and just, there's a disclaimer, but I know sometimes you can take competitive award letters. Like if you got a award letter from school A and school B, you can take it to school C, and school C might allow you to do a repackaging request, right? And so then they might allow you to negotiate a little bit and see if they'll match if you got a different award package from another school. That happens more at private institutions than it does at publics. I'll be really honest, I've worked at mostly publics my entire career, and we've never done that at any public I've ever been at. So it's just not a typical thing that happens at the public. When you talk to a public institution or a private, this goes for both schools or both types of schools, when you're asking for more aid, it's typically as a result of a change in circumstances. So if you have, and this is like going through the roof right now because of COVID and because of parents and families and students not able to work, losing jobs, losing income, changes in financial situation, that is definitely call us and tell us what your change. If your income has changed, we need you to call us as early as possible. As soon as you get your award letter from that institution and you know that you've had a change in income, you need to call us and talk to us about that. We're immediately going to ask for tax documents, W-2s, that type of thing. If you were laid off, a letter of separation. If there was a divorce, maybe a divorce decree. There's all different types of situations, but we're seeing more and more students. And remember, you're completing your FAFSA off of a prior tax year, so it's important that you complete that correctly and then call us and talk to us about aid changes, and we can see if your eligibility for aid would change as a result of that income change. So, next one, please.
Emily?
Yeah.
Emily, I'm just going to jump in real quick. We have probably like 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so since we're a little bit short on time, you guys have these slides, and a lot of this stuff I've already covered. I was a little bit redundant with my slides, but I wanted to make sure we were calling some things out. So institutional scholarships, we've talked a lot about that, so I'll go ahead and breeze over this one. These next 2 slides are informational and resource, other outside external scholarship resources and those are clickable links that you can go to. So those are just there for your reference to give to students or to help point students toward in order to apply for maybe some external resources. So this one and the next one. Okay. I think we have more information coming about this, but I just wanted to also drop a little hint about this, that this is out there as well, but since we're covering that later, we'll go ahead and skip over that one as well. This one real quick, should students who are going to college for free apply? I don't know who's going for free mostly, but I guess it's out there, but if you are going for free or think you're getting a full ride or whatever, still complete the FAFSA, still apply for private scholarships. You don't necessarily have every single cost covered. You don't know what's going to come up as an emergency. You don't know if your car is going to break down. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's better to go ahead and apply. And private scholarships oftentimes are allowed to stack like I talked about aid displacing, a lot of institutions allow private scholarships to come in behind and stack on top of institutional aid instead of displacing it. So that could be part of what helps you build that gap between the cost of attendance and your actual costs. All right, next one, please. Tuition payment plans, we've talked a little bit about that. This is here more for informational purposes, so please take a look at that. But it's really important to look at the cashier's or bursar's website, and unpaid balances really catch up with you. So do not delay in making a plan. It goes back to the planning that we talked about. Federal direct loans. So again, here's information. The student has the opportunity for federal direct loans, subsidized or unsubsidized. There's some information, like basically how they work just in these bullet points, but really the next slide has a chart that will help outline it a little bit more. So you have your subsidized loan and your unsub loans. The subsidized is need-based, and this kind of outlines the difference between the sub and unsub. And in combination, each year of students in, they get X amount of dollars in these federal loans. And what I will say is, these are students taking these loans out. And even if you're getting the highest amount of the loan per your grade level, that plus a full Pell Grant still doesn't necessarily cover tuition at a lot of institutions. So it's really important to understand that even if a student's taking out their full loan eligibility, they don't necessarily have enough money then to live. They're not even necessarily always covering their full tuition costs. But loans can be a really valuable investment in an education. So next slide, please. The Parent Plus loan is a loan that the parent takes out. It is a federal loan as well. They do have to do a credit check in order to get this, but it's what we would call a soft credit check. So here are some just informational pieces about that. You can borrow, the Parent Plus loan can go all the way up to the COA, and that's the difference. The student loans have a limit, and the parent loan can go all the way up to that COA. All right, next slide, please. Private external student loans are also a good option. The student can take it out, and if they have enough credit history, they don't necessarily have to have a cosigner, but they often do have to have a cosigner. And this is where we get into that budgeting is so important, because either the parent needs to help with cosigning, or the student needs to obtain another cosigner, or the parent needs to work on a plus loan or a private loan. And I encourage parents to look at both private versus plus and see what interest rates are best or what terms and conditions are best. Going the plus route isn't necessarily always the best option, but private might be a good one as well. So, and then the very last slide I have is the next one, and it really it's just comparing that Parent Plus versus the private loans and where those terms and conditions might be different. Again, the private loans, you could have a variety of, you could have a really good relationship with your bank and walk into your bank and get a better rate potentially than a Parent Plus loan. But there's also a lot of really good vendors out there that have good options. The last thing I'll say, because I know we're running out of time, is a lot of schools go ahead and package the plus loan on a student's award letter, which you probably talked about that in the last session that you had. And there is a movement to stop doing that, and allow go ahead and show that gap, because there's no guarantee. The parent has to get approved for that plus loan. Go ahead and show that gap, and then start having the conversations with the parent and the student earlier in the process of what's the right fit for them from a private loan or a plus loan, and give them some options to apply for some different things and see what's best for them versus pushing them directly toward the plus loan. I know we're moving in that direction as well, especially for our non-resident students where it's a little bit more expensive. So, all right. Sorry, I had to rush through those last ones a little bit.
Thanks so much, Emily. We really appreciate your time and expertise today. So next up, we have Dominesha from the Scholarship Foundation of St. Louis to give us information and tips on supporting students. And feel free to go ahead and put any questions in that chat, and we will make sure that we answer them in a little bit. So, Dominesha.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all about what we can help our students consider and remind them about as they're exploring their options with scholarships and loans to help them close their needs gap. A lot that I plan to share does relate to a lot what Emily has shared with us already, but I will do my best not to be redundant. And so I do want to take the time to first share a little bit about the Scholarship Foundation, just in case there's anyone on the call that is unfamiliar. So we are a non-for-profit organization that was founded in 1920. We started off with a interest-free loan, offering an interest-free loan to a student so that they can go to business school. And once that student got their degree, they paid back that $15 during those times. And that loan program is still in existence today. And we have also extended to our grant programs as well, which I'll talk about a little bit more. The foundation also functions around three main pillars. The first is awarding. So the foundation has awarded $5 million annually to 500 students in the form of our interest-free loan, scholarships, grants, and our paid internship, all which are need-based and last dollar. We also have our advising program where we are providing students with the need-to-know information so that they can make decisions about their post-secondary education goals. And then also our last pillar is advocacy. So next slide, please. So here are our objectives for today. We'll talk about the common things that we can help and remind students to consider when they're reviewing and comparing their financial aid offer. I'll also share with you a simple equation that may be very helpful for students as they are determining their unmet need. Then we'll talk about loan considerations and supporting students in making informed borrowing decisions. And then lastly, I'll touch on bridging that gap. And through that, I'll share information about the Scholarship Foundation's interest-free loan and grant programs. Next slide, please. So that we are all on the same page, I just wanted to briefly talk about these financial aid options, put them in separate categories so that we are just on the same page as I move through the following slides. So first, when we are talking about our free money options, that is, of course, our grants and scholarships. That can be on the federal, state, the institutional side, or private, or from organizations. Also, with our self-help aid, that would be including our work study and loans. So financial aid that students would either have to work for or pay back at some point. All right, so on this slide, I have a couple bullets, and I just want to highlight some things, and Emily touched on a lot of these points, but I want to highlight them as things that we want to help our students consider and understand as they're reviewing their financial aid award letter. So first, we want students to make sure they're able to identify their total cost of attendance. That would include our direct costs, which Emily talked about, and our indirect costs as well. And if that is not included on the student's financial aid award letter, it's important for students to think about things such as books, supplies, transportation, and any other personal expenses that that student will need for that whole academic year to attend that school. So having a full picture of their cost of attendance. Also, the next bullet, students should have an idea of how much free money was offered to them. So were they offered any grants and scholarships? And then the next bullet, if they were offered grants and scholarships, are they renewable? And if so, what are those requirements does the student have to meet in order to continuously receive that funding source? Also, the student should have an idea of what their out-of-pocket expense is going to be. So how much will I have to pay, even if that is borrowing or working for? And then the next bullet, what loans were offered, if any? And if I had loans on my financial aid award letter, what's the interest rates, terms, and conditions of those loans? And then I appreciate Emily touching on the aid displacement a little bit. So what is the institution's aid displacement policy? We want to be sure that if our student is spending time applying for scholarships, that won't have a negative impact on their institutional aid that they're receiving, and that they're actually closing their gaps by receiving outside scholarships. And then this next bullet, does this institutional grants and scholarship increase as costs go up? I think this is a really important point. I know some of you may experience students' costs continuously go up year after year. So we want our students to have an idea of how the school normally adjusts to when that happens on their campus. And then the last bullet, what is the institution's work-study policy? On some campuses, there are policies where a student has to have a work-study job by a certain deadline in order to receive that work-study award. And also in some cases, unfortunately, there are not enough work-study jobs on that campus for the amount of students that have been awarded. So I think those are important things to think about, and you can go to the next slide. So here is the equation, very simple, but very important, because I think this equation will help students understand how much they'll need in scholarships and loans to cover their costs of attending an institution. So yes, loans are not included in this equation because we want to hopefully help our students avoid borrowing loans unnecessarily. So you can go to the next slide. So when students are looking at their gap and thinking about ways to fill their gap, I wanted to be sure to highlight some things that we can remind our students about as they're exploring their scholarships as an option to fill their gap. So first, we want to make sure we're reminding our students that they shouldn't be paying for any scholarship opportunity. They shouldn't be paying to sign up for any site that's going to guarantee them scholarship money or anything like that. Also reiterating that, is their scholarship renewable? Will they be able to use that scholarship year after year? And what are those requirements? And are those requirements obtainable for the student? Also, is that scholarship portable? So if our students are receiving an institutional scholarship, is it specific to their grant? I'm sorry, is it specific to their major? And if students are receiving outside scholarships, they should be wondering that if they decide to transfer, does it matter what institution they go to? Will that scholarship go where they go? So if they transfer from a 2-year to a 4-year institution, a public to private, in-state or out-of-state, those are just really important things to think about when our students are exploring their scholarships. And then last, a displacement again. We just want to be sure that if our students are trying to close their gap, that they're actually able to do so. And so reaching out to that institution to see what their policy is and how, if they do adjust their institutional aid, if they bring in outside scholarships. Next slide, please. So I really appreciated that Emily spent some time talking on loans. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about loans as well, but I have put it in a framing that hopefully it's more digestible for our students as they think about loans, because I know from my experience, loans were confusing and daunting and I didn't want them, but I took them because I thought I had to. So we've separated these loan options into ones that are better options versus loan options that students should be cautious about. So when we're looking at our federal loan versus our private loan, the private loan is one students should be cautious about because, you know, you may be required to do a credit check and provide a cosigner. They have high or variable interest rates. And then there are limited deferment and forbearance options with the private loan. When we're looking at our student loan, so our federal student loans versus our the Parent Plus loan. The Parent Plus loan is one that families should be cautious about because it's only available to our dependent students. So if you are a student that is considered independent on the FAFSA, this would not be an option. Also, there is that credit requirement that was recently spoke about. And then also that annual limit being cost of attendance minus the financial aid that the student received. That amount can be very large and probably could possibly put that family in a compromised position financially if they are accepting a Parent Plus loan that is as large as the annual, the cost of attendance at an institution. Additionally, with that Parent Plus loan, it has a high interest rate compared to the student loan. So that is currently, it's at 2.30, and then there's no grace period on that Parent Plus loan. So families would have to start paying on that loan immediately. And then the last bullet, when we look at our subsidized versus unsubsidized loan, I imagine we've had a lot of conversation with students about the difference between these two loan options because they have a lot of similarities. And so that being that it's a federal loan, it has that fixed interest rate. Currently it's 2.27, and then it has that 6-month grace period. But the difference is why we say that the unsubsidized loan is one that students should be cautious about. One being that it is not need-based. So it is possible that our students could be offered and sometimes even accept a subsidized loan without necessarily having a need to take on that loan. Also, the point in which the student is charged interest. So with the subsidized loan, you know, our federal government is giving the students a subsidy by paying their interest while they're in school. And on that unsubsidized loan, the student will be charged interest right away. So dollar for dollar, our student would have to pay back more in the unsubsidized loan. Next slide. And so as our students continue to explore loans as an option, I think it's very helpful if we can remind them that there are borrowing limits when it comes to our federal Stafford loans. For example, the maximum amount that a first-year college student can receive in the Stafford loan is $5,500 total, and that's for a dependent student, and only $3,500 of that can be subsidized. Also, we want our students to be aware of that interest accrual. So they should know the interest rate for each year that they plan to borrow, and the federal interest rates are recalculated each year on July 1st. And then also students should have some idea or start having conversations with someone that they trust, someone that maybe has gone to college, about their personal debt limits. They should know how much they're comfortable borrowing, and then what debt load is in line with their personal and professional goals. All right, so this is the point in which I want to share more about the Scholarship Foundation's funding opportunities. Here you will see a list of our basic eligibility requirements. And I do want to point out that some of our grant programs deviate from these guidelines. So I recommend in recommending these opportunities to students, just remind them to read all the requirements as they would with any other thing that they're applying for. So students must demonstrate financial need, academic promise, and strong character to be eligible for consideration. The minimum GPA that we require is a 2.0. Students must also attend an accredited non-for-profit institution, and all of our funding is renewable provided that students continue to meet requirements, and students must be a permanent resident of an eligible service area. We also have a process called a conditional denial, where we will deny a student if we have concerns that they may need to borrow additional loans to cover their bill, since our purpose is to be the last dollar for the student so that they don't have to borrow outside loans. If a student does receive a conditional denial, then we will give them an opportunity to bring other resources to the table that we didn't initially calculate, or to explore a different institution where their unmet need is less. Also, our application deadline is April 15th before midnight. And now I'm going to talk about our grant opportunities. And my colleague Teresa will share some links in the chat with more information about these opportunities. And these are just some of them that I want to highlight. And these opportunities, along with our interest-free loan and other opportunities that we have at the foundation, can be found on Scholarship Central, which we'll talk a little bit more today. So with the BJC Scholars Fund, that is a $10,000 maximum award, And this is for, or sorry, to the right of the BJC Scholars Fund, you'll see a list of counties that students have to be a permanent residence of in order to be eligible. Next is the Rooted Undergraduate Scholarship. And students would have to be high school seniors graduating from one of the high schools that are listed to the right. Then there is the Rooted Community College Transfer Scholarship, which is for students that are transferring from East Central College, Ozark Technical Community College, State Fair Community College, or Three Rivers Community College, and that plan to continue their education at a degree granting institution. Next is the New Air Scholarship, and this is for high school seniors that actively participated in either Big Brothers Big Sister of Eastern Missouri, College Bound, KIPS St. Louis Internship Program, and Wyman Teen Leaders Program. And then last but not least of the opportunities I want to share with you all today is the Ava's Grace Scholarship, which is specifically for students who have experienced parental incarceration. And again, all of our funding opportunities are renewable. And now I guess we can open it up for questions, if there are any, if this is time to do that. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Dominesha. Monica, are there questions that need to be answered by any of the presenters?
There was one question that was answered by a couple folks in the chat, but if you'd like to add your thoughts, Dominesha, it was if a student is interested in work study but cannot work due to a physical disability and or who cannot have their disability accommodated in a position, do they have any flexibility in having work study funds replaced with other non-loan dollars? What would you recommend for a student in that situation?
You know what? That is a good question, and I would actually be interested. Personally, I'll have to go back and see if that was offered in the chat box, but I actually don't have the answer to that, but something I can look up if it hasn't been answered already.
Okay, and one more question. I have a student whose father has been deported. Any ideas for additional aid assistance for her?
Specifically, I do not know of any aids, but I do recommend that the student share those circumstances with the institution that they're planning to attend.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dominesha and Emily, and we're going to move next to Kaitlyn, and she's going to talk about My Scholarships Central. So I think there's quite a few opportunities open now for students to apply. So Kaitlyn, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, all. Good to be here with you. Many of you are familiar with My Scholarship Central, but if you are not, here's kind of the quick overview. And if you are familiar, it's always good for a refresher. So My Scholarship Central is the free place for Missouri students and students from the Metro East to find scholarships. We have two resources and tools for you and your students to use. The first is our search tool, which we launched this year and is kind of newer, so I'm going to go over the details on that. And the second is our application site, which has been around for a number of years and where you actually apply for the scholarships. Next slide, please. So this search tool came about because the scholarship providers across Missouri said there has to be a way that we can work together to help students find funding for college. We all know that we may not have the perfect scholarship each individually as an organization for each student, but if we work together, we can help students find enough funding for college. So if you go to myscholarshipcentral.org and you scroll down slightly, you'll see this map of Missouri. Students or you, the advisor or parents, can click on their region, and if you're not sure which region you're in, if you click, you'll then see the list of counties. And then you click the button that says View Scholarship Providers. So you can click anywhere in Missouri, or we also have a Kansas and Illinois button. And if you're outside of those regions, there's a button at the bottom of the map for you there as well. Once you click that, you'll see a list of local scholarship providers. You can read about the organization, see their timeline, see their types of scholarships, and then you can click through to apply directly with the organization. So this is kind of a directory of scholarship providers in the state, and it's a really good place to start the scholarship search. So if you have students who are still trying to figure out where to look, this is a great place to start. Next slide, please. So on the left side of this slide, you see our featured organizations and collaborators in this project. So some really big organizations that give away a lot of money in scholarships and interest-free loans each year and have a lot of opportunities for students. And on the right side, you see a small example of what a results page might look like. So this is for the Kansas City metro region. You can see there's 3 different organizations listed there. There's even more for Kansas City listed below that. You can read about the organization, and then if you click that orange Apply Now button, it takes you directly to their site. So again, the search tool is a great place to start your search and a great way for students to see there are a lot of places I can be applying for scholarships, and there are a lot of opportunities out there for me. Next slide, please. So if students decide, well, Scholarship Central is the place where I really want to be applying, they can go to myscholarshipcentral.org/apply, and they can go through to our application site. My Scholarship Central does also appear on the results pages, so if they see that, they can click through there. But this is a real easy way to get to our application site. On My Scholarship Central, you can apply to more than 100 scholarships on one website. So students first complete a general application, which is kind of like their profile that has all their basic information. And using that information, we match them to scholarships that they qualify for. So we do some of that initial narrowing. So a high school senior is not seeing scholarships for students who are in college. A student who lives in Springfield is not seeing opportunities for a student in Cape Girardeau. So we kind of narrow it down for students. We are completely virtual. Students type their entire applications on our site. They upload all virtual documents, all the applications are online, and all of our letters of reference are virtual. So in this year where you may not be face-to-face with students, they can still do all of the scholarship work that they need to do. And we have opportunities for high school, college, and adult students across Missouri, as well as those metro counties in Illinois. Most importantly, we are a free community resource. We have no spam, we have no ads, we are just a free resource for students that seeks to help students find the funding that they need to go to college. Because as we have heard, so many students still have that gap, and scholarships are one of the best ways to fill that gap. Next slide, please. So again, it's a 2-step process to use the My Scholarship Central application site. First, you complete that general application, all that basic information. Students do have to upload a transcript to be able to complete the general application. This does not have to be an official transcript. It can be a screenshot of their transcript. It can be an unofficial transcript that you've emailed them. It does not have to be official. It is really important that students complete the general application fully and accurately. If they do not, they will not see all of the scholarships that are a good fit for them. After they've done the general application, they can then apply to specific scholarship opportunities. All that general application information is automatically connected to your specific scholarship applications. And on the specific scholarship, that's where the organization asks the information that they want to know. Essays, activities, letters of reference, anything that gets to the point of that organization's mission and what they're looking for from their scholarship organizations. They may be asking for additional documents to upload, but those are the specifics there. To qualify for any kind of funding, students have to apply for specific scholarships. Filling out the general application does not qualify you for any funding, so students have to complete and submit specific scholarship opportunities by the deadline to be qualified for funding. Very important, don't use Internet Explorer on Scholarship Central. Our site is not compatible with Internet Explorer. It will seem like it is, and then you'll try to submit and it will not submit. So don't use Internet Explorer if you're writing letters of reference. If you're doing student applications, use something other than Internet Explorer. Next slide, please. This is what the general application looks like. One of the really important things is to make sure the county is correct. Almost all of our scholarships have some kind of county requirement. So if a student doesn't put their county in correctly, they will not see the best opportunities. So our county list is really long, but just help students figure out where their county is on that list. If a student has not decided what college they're going to, they can select multiple schools. They just have to, I think it's you either push like Control or Shift, it says on the question how to do that, but you can select multiple colleges. Again, upload that transcript. If you're ever having trouble uploading files on Scholarship Central, check the file name. Our site is really picky about file names, so if there's an extra period, if there's any special characters, you'll probably get an error message. So if you're having trouble with that, check the file name And if you really can't get it, email me and I'm happy to help. Students can start the reference process on their general application, but they do not have to. So they can add a reference here that can be used anywhere our common reference is used, but they also don't have to do that. And if it's a starred question, it's required on the general application. Next slide, please. So once that general application is done, students will see a recommended opportunities list. So that's what we see on the left side. So if a student clicks that bolded and underlined name of a scholarship, it will pull up the info page about the scholarship. If they click the orange apply button, it'll pull up the whole application. So a student may want to read the full information and they can click on that name and then see a scholarship. So the Women Legislators of Missouri Scholarship just opened this week. They can read all the details, all the criteria, see the questions and say, yep, this is one I want to apply for. They click apply and they finish that application. The deadlines are always there and our deadlines are always at 11:59 p.m. Make sure students are not waiting until the day of or the night of. I work fairly traditional hours, so if students are emailing me at 9 or 10 p.m. the day of a deadline, I am not going to see that. And if a student gets locked out of their account the day of a deadline, I cannot manually unlock their account. So they will be out of their account for a few hours and there's nothing that I can do about that. So just make sure to let students know the deadline is very important and you ideally do not want to start an application the day of the deadline because you may not be able to finish it. Next slide, please. So before I started working for Scholarship Central, I knew it was a great resource and I knew that students received a lot of scholarships, but really seeing kind of how it works and the results have really proved that to me. So last year, we had over 9,000 total users. Of those total users, 5,122 students went on to apply for a specific scholarship. Almost half of those students earned a scholarship or interest-free loan award, and that total was $9.4 million. That is a lot of money to a lot of students, helping them to be able to go to college for an affordable price. And from what I see in the system is students who are taking the time to submit multiple high-quality scholarship applications have a very strong chance of earning at least one scholarship. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed, but a student who only submits one scholarship, maybe they'll earn it, maybe not. But a student who takes the time to submit 8 scholarships and really writes great essays, gets good letters of recommendation, talks about their high school experiences, they're going to be seen by so many groups that it's a great chance that one of those groups will see that student and award them some type of scholarship. One of the challenges that I know can come up with Scholarship Central is everybody runs on their own timeline. So we have the 3 foundations on my Scholarship Central who all have paid staff and are running their organizations. Then we have all these community organizations that are mostly run by volunteers. So they are running this scholarship program in addition to being a part of their organization, working, living their life. So sometimes students are not finding out about scholarships until May or June, which I know can make it hard for students to make a decision about college. I try to move people through as best as I can, but just know sometimes the timeline doesn't match up perfectly with college deadlines, but students should just keep checking their account so that they can know what's going on with their scholarships. Next slide, please. So all my contact information is here. Email me, call me, I am happy to help. I put all of our social media here, and then this is just an example of what our social media posts look like. This is something I've been putting some time into this year, but this is our Instagram grid. We have Instagram posts for most of the scholarships that are up on Scholarship Central, and I try to put a new one up 2 to 3 times a week, if not every day. So if you're looking for an easy way to spread the word to your students about our scholarships, you are free to share these graphics. You are free to use these, share them on your social media. They're a really good resource. I'm also going to drop a couple resources in the chat as I go off. We have a page of external scholarships on my Scholarship Central, where if a student is not finding luck with our programs or they really want to go above and beyond and find other opportunities, these are links to other organizations who have scholarships but don't use my Scholarship Central. And then back in the fall, I did a full walkthrough of Scholarship Central at the end of a PDI. So I'll drop the YouTube link for that as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions in the chat. Thanks for your time and thanks for all your work you're doing with students.
Okay, thanks, Kaitlyn. I'm going to jump right in with some options from the Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation. We offer scholarships, grants, and interest-free loans and our population is strictly Missouri students attending Missouri schools. And those are both 4-year and 2-year institutions and both private and public institutions in Missouri. And today I'm going to share information about 2 of our programs in particular that are focused on helping current high school seniors who will be attending Missouri institutions in the fall. So the next slide is information on our Access Extra Scholarship, which is a fairly large scholarship program. This is a quick, easy scholarship with no essays. We're looking for students who meet 2 requirements. First, they have a 12,000 or less EFC. And second, they have either a 3.8 GPA, and this can be weighted or unweighted, or a 27 or higher on the ACT. So there's a need component of that 12,000 or less EFC, and then there's a merit component, and that's either the GPA or ACT. Again, it's quick, easy, no essays. They would need to be attending a Missouri institution this fall, and that's 2-year or 4-year, public or private. The award is $2,000, and they simply upload a student aid report to show the EFC, and then they either upload their transcript showing the 3.8, or if they're going to go the ACT route, they would need to upload something showing that ACT score. It is renewable for up to 4 years, so once they have it, they're in. They don't have to, basically each year they're going to keep it as long as they're still enrolled full-time or keep a 2.5 GPA, although we have been, anyway, we've kind of thrown that out the last couple of years with COVID. We've kind of made exceptions to that. We have funded, this year we're going to fund around $2 million, and then we're hoping for next year for 21-22, over $3 million. So this is a large program and plenty of funding behind it. The next slide is our information about our MASFAP, which is our interest-free, fee-free loan. This is a gap loan program to help Missouri students attending Missouri institutions fill a gap. So after their federal aid, state aid, institutional aid, and any other aid, such as private scholarships, if there's still a gap, they can apply for MASFAP if they qualify. MASFAP would replace other gap funding, such as PLUS loans or alternative loans. It is interest-free, fee-free for the life of the loan. For the 21-22 academic year, we are expanding this criteria, and the application will not be open until May or June, but the need criteria would be 20,000 or less EFC. They would have to meet one of the merit criteria, which is a 21 or higher on that ACT, or a 2.5 or higher high school GPA. Students must be, from Missouri and enrolled full-time at a Missouri institution in the fall. So there's more information on our website, but I wanted to make sure that you all know that this is a really good gap funding program. They do have to, ours is a little different than the Scholarship Foundation. Ours is actually truly gap funded. It is not intended to replace federal loans and other aid. It's really intended just to fill the gap after that, after federal loans, because we don't have the resources to cover the whole gap federal loans. But our application is certified by the school's financial aid, and funds are sent to the school's financial aid office. And the credit criteria is much different from PLUS and private loans. Then again, the new application will be available May or June, and there's information on our website. And then the next slide, I'm not going to talk much about. I just wanted to include these as informational, but we do have programs that are available for current college students. So these are programs that we work with the financial aid offices across the state so that they know that we do have emergency grant available. We have a scholarship program to help leaders on their campuses that have a need for extra scholarship dollars. And then we have a degree completion grant program that helps students that have a back balance that want to return. If you know anybody that has a back balance and wants to return to school, we have a program, and we're quite flexible with it, and we're trying to get those students across the finish line. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kayla for a few final announcements and to close out our session.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you to all of our presenters. I know they just gave you guys a lot of information, but it is truly critical information, and especially for you guys in this like crazy COVID world that we're living in. We know you guys are the ones helping students navigate all of this crazy stuff that's going on. We do have a few announcements of some additional programs and resources that we want to give you guys, so that way you have those in your toolkit to help people. I believe Shannon is on this call.
Yes.
So I was going to let her talk a little bit about UMSL Bridge Program for Summer Opportunities.
Thank you. So I appreciate being here with you all. All of you are such great supporters of the UMSL Bridge Program for years. We work diligently with Kaitlyn as well for some of our scholarship opportunities for our students. So I'll run quickly through our summer program opportunities. For those of you who do not know, we are a college prep program for high school students. We are open to all districts in the St. Louis metropolitan area. With things going virtual last year, we were able to expand nationwide, even as far as we had a student in Nigeria that was participating in our Saturday Academy, which we are closing out. So I have a brief slide about that at the end. So we can advance to the next slide. So some of our program opportunities that we have for the summer, our staple program is the Summer Academy program, and it is for currently enrolled 9th and 10th grade students. So they would be sophomore and junior in fall of 2021. And so this program, we have broken it down into 2 sessions with things being virtual. So we have 2 sessions that are offered June 14th through the 25th and June 28th through July 9th. And so students can select one of those sessions. It's from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The focus during that time period is math and science. We do a lot of ACT preparation, writing and dialogue strategies, and career and personal development with our students. So again, this is for students currently enrolled in grades 9 and 10, and this is for students from all over the St. Louis metropolitan area. There are no exclusions. Students just have to have a 2.5 GPA or higher. And then we were proud to be able to start our middle school academy this past summer, and we are continuing with that again this summer. This is for students that are entering 7th through 9th grade in the fall. And so there's no exclusions with that as either. They just have to have a 2.5 GPA. And then that session is from July 19th through the 30th. And so you see the corresponding deadlines for those things. Our Bridge to the ACT Summer Intensive, this continues to grow each year. We do provide ACT preparation in all components of our academies. However, we found the need for more intense preparation for our rising seniors. And so this is a week-long virtual workshop for our seniors. It's Monday through Friday. It is from 7:45 to noon. There's a lot of information to get through during that time period. And so students can select one of the 2 options indicated here. Next slide, please. And then Spend the Summer Right was another, as I was listening to Kaitlyn talk, this was sprung off of one of the things that we were doing with our students during the Saturday Academy when we were physical. We found that students had the intelligence, they had the ACT scores, but they were not taking the time to sit down and write out their scholarship essays. And so once we began that partnership with them where we did scholarship work sessions, that's where our numbers of scholarships, they grew exponentially. And so we started the Spend the Summer Right program to assist with this further. Students sit down, they come on 3 Fridays, and they can leave with polished essays for the most common essay questions on the Common App application. And so this is a limited amount of students that we're able to work with, but it is for rising seniors, and it's in addition to the other things that we offer during our Summer and Saturday Academy program. And last but not least, our Commit to Success College Prep Talks. These are drop-in sessions. It doesn't require as much of a commitment for students where they can come in. We call them our workshop Wednesdays. They're from 3 to 4 p.m. And so these are the times where we cover anything from the admissions process to advice for athletes to stress management and things of that nature. So these are open again to all students, all districts as well. Everything that I've mentioned, all of our services are free. The only thing that students have to have is the drive, the commitment, and they do have to go to our website to apply for these opportunities. So next slide, please. So for more information, all of these opportunities are available on our website, umsl.edu/pre-collegiate, or you can give us a call, you can email us. We are in the throes of recruitment season as we're closing out our Saturday Academy tomorrow. We are counselors. Many of you have probably heard from us already to schedule recruitment visits. We incredibly miss being out in the schools with you all, but we are doing some of those things virtually to make sure that our students have access to the information. For our counselors, one of the things that we're going to start doing as well is kind of drop-in sessions in the evenings, so that you guys, if you have additional questions about our program opportunities, if you need additional information, it's something that you can just drop into when you need to. And so we'll be getting that information out to you as well. We are on social media. Have a huge social media presence, and we post all of our opportunities here as well. So if you're not following us, please take out your phones, take a minute to go ahead and follow us, and you can keep up with our information there as well. Next slide, please. Last but not least, I wanted to invite all of you to our award recognition ceremony. Typically, we would be in the America Center in the Grand Ballroom, and it is a grand event, but we're trying to make it equally as lively and as wonderful as as our typical event. So I invite all of you to this event. It's tomorrow from 10 to 12. It's a live broadcast. We're going to be celebrating the accomplishments of all of our students, special recognition given to our seniors. They have collectively, they have about $4 million in scholarships and counting. And so it's attributed to their hard work and the partnerships of many that are on this call. And so we invite you. Lisa Leslie is our keynote speaker. So if you'd like to join, you can go there to register, but also it is available by just going to our website, and it'll be on the landing page tomorrow. So we invite all of you to attend tomorrow. So thank you. I know that was a lot of information compacted in a few minutes, but I wanted to respect the time. If you all have any questions, I know Sadie Weiss, who's our assistant director, she's on the call. Andrew Smith, one of the coordinators, he's on the call. And of course, the lovely Dr. Natisha Small, she is on the call as well. And can answer some of those questions. And Monica continues to instruct with us during the Saturday Academy. So thank you all. We look forward to having many of your students as a part of our program, and we are here to help. Thank you all, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much for being here. I've heard great things about your program, and so I'm excited, and that dollar amount for scholarships is fantastically amazing, especially as a financial aid person. That makes my heart very happy. So we appreciate that. We also want to talk a little bit about the Missouri. They're having virtual college fairs. So there's a little bit about that on here, just to kind of give you guys ideas for your students. Like I said, we all know this is a very crazy time for them. So we want to give you all the resources and tools that we can. There is also a link in the chat if you need to get registered or help someone register for the college fairs. The next one is March 10th, 5 to 7:45 p.m. So make sure you get that out there to them. I think we can go to the next one. So resources. So we've talked a lot about all the things. You've heard a lot of stuff. My Scholarship Central is amazing. The Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation, the Scholarship Foundation of St. Louis Graduates, and of course MASFAP. We are all here to help you guys. This is a crazy time for those seniors to navigate, but your juniors are quickly approaching all of the craziness that will happen their senior year, and they're looking for resources and trying to start figuring out that college process. Anybody in my position will tell you we like to get them early and have them start having that conversation and making that good financial fit for them. So please reach out to us. All of our contact information, I think, is on the next slide, I believe, maybe. So I want to thank Melissa for co-hosting with me. She's my co-chair for early awareness, and we are taking the college counselors by storm. That's what we're going to call it this year. Alex Miller, who couldn't be with us, she is actually our president-elect for MASFAP. She is a big player in our early awareness committee as well. All three of us, email us, ask us questions. If we are the resource, we will get you to one. I promise you that. Becca Diskin is our current MASFAP president. Same with her. We are happy to help and support you. Laura, who's part of St. Louis Graduates, Trent, and then Melissa Findley is also on the board for St. Louis Graduates. This is why our emails are here. Ask us questions. MASFAP is statewide organization. St. Louis Graduates has all the resources. Again, if we're not the right person, we will get you to the right person. I promise you. So we're just happy to have all of you guys. Is that it? Are we done? We are done. Yay! So happy Friday. Again, thank you to everybody that took the time out to present, join us. Again, please complete the survey. We are trying to make sure we're touching on topics that are working for you guys, questions that you're having. We want to make sure that we help you navigate this through. And so that's why we've kind of done a year-long thing, and we're getting close to the end, but we still want to make sure we're supporting you on topics that are continuing on. This will get posted on our MASFAP website. St. Louis graduates will also post it. So just know it's recorded. It'll be out there for reference. But again, happy Friday. Enjoy the nice weather and have a great day, guys.